The first place we should start with this particular lesson is asking ourselves, what has been the impact of the lessons and choices we have made? If you don't take that second to reflect upon what has happened from the choice you've made, then the likelihood is you're not going to learn from it and you're going to repeat it. Most of our problems don't come because we've done one thing wrong one time. Well, because that's normal. It's absolutely normal, natural, and we should expect people to make mistakes. And we shouldn't hang people out to dry because they make errors in judgment. Otherwise, we don't grow. It's the patterns of mistakes over and over again. And let's face it, things you feel most frustrated about are frequently the things that you have repeated ad nauseum. So what I'd like to do is just make a list of what has been the choices and the choices' impact upon our behavior. That's one way to see why you keep repeating things, what you repeat, and how you feel about what you repeat. Almost everybody feels good or feels bad at some degree. Their life is working or not working, they're balanced or not balanced because of their identity. A few moments ago, a woman in the back said that instead of running out and finding a job that maybe just a year ago or 6 months ago, she would have taken the first job in an insecure society where jobs are hard to come by, especially in an area of specialization. Hers is in hospital administration. Instead, she's taking an opportunity to match her real self with a job that meets her real inner needs. Now, it may not be in hospital administration. It may be in something else. Maybe in hospital administration, she found that she was more interested in working with people than with statistics and budgets. As a result, she's going to be expanding her options. But if she didn't know who she was, if she didn't have a sense of her own real identity, she'd just take the first thing that came. Now, how many of you are in jobs that you really don't like, don't meet your needs, or in relationships do not meet your needs? Have friends, don't meet your needs, because you don't know what your real needs are, because you still don't know your real identity. If you were to describe yourself, the real self, think for a moment, how would you describe it? If you were your own biographer, and you were to get up right now and say, all right, this is, if I'm doing it for myself, let me describe the real Gary Null. Now, is the real Gary Null the same one that people hear on the radio or see on television or read in the books? Is it a different person? What is that person? Well, how much of me does the public actually see? No one knows anything about my personal life or private life, because when you're in the public eye, you keep that to yourself. Otherwise, people just become fascinated with the trivia of your own existence. But the real you has to be what you're sharing to the public. Otherwise, you're a false person. You're one person and you share a separate message. So you have to reconcile that. There's no problem in that if you know who you really are, and what you're really doing is sharing the real self with the public. Well, I know a lot of people are in the media who use the media as a hiding place because they haven't the slightest idea who they really are. They know what they are, but not who they are. So they manicure the what. They know what's expected from other people, but not of themselves. So frequently what they do is they live their life honoring the needs that others have laid down to them, and they've just carried it on as if it were their own. But if they actually stopped and said, hold on, whose life am I living here? My own or someone else's? It wouldn't be their own, because they don't know their own identity. So if you were to name 10 things about you that differentiate you, the real self, from what others may think is you, what would those be? How would you define the real self? If it were Gerald or Bernice or any of the others, what's the real self? That's crucial, because no journey can begin, no changes are going to manifest. Nothing's going to functionally happen that's going to change your life and keep it changed if you're not changing for the right reasons, for the right person. And sometimes that means making a radical shift away from what you had thought was the right purpose. I can tell you from counseling a lot of people that most of the problems I find in counseling are not that a person's not a good person or a bad person, that they're inherently positive or negative, is they're making the wrong decisions because they're trying to honor the wrong self. There are frequently two or more selves. You know, and depending upon what self they're trying to honor in any given moment, that's the role they take on. But if it's not real, nothing comes from it. Nothing. So describe yourself. That's crucial. These are all for your journals this week. To what do we give quality or attention? When we realize that we're going to be giving our life to something, what do we give it to? I mean, you only have 24 hours in a day. What gets those 24 hours? Now, is it a quality of lifestyle? Is it the manifestation of ego and image? Is it a higher ideal? Is it scholarship? Is it multifactorial growth on many different levels? What are you growing into? What are you becoming? Something's happening inside. When you're a kid, you know it. You can't wait till you get large enough to wash your hands in the sink or turn on the knobs till you can, drive a car. You look forward to what you're becoming. At first, guys that, at the age of 10, 11 start to get facial hair, start mock shaving. All right. They're becoming something. When you're going through college and high school, you're becoming something. You're becoming more aware. But once we get out and we get into the world, what do we become? Outside of our work, outside of going through promotions, or outside of trying to have certain fixed assets that will then determine where we're going to live, how long we're going to live there, to what degree we're going to have a life beyond that. But that doesn't mean that's for each of us. So if you could start all over today, from scratch, and this is how you have to look at it. You cannot keep bringing everything from yesterday into today, or you have no today. You have to start fresh. You have to wash that mind each morning and say, today is what I've got. If I go out to run and I start thinking about things from the past, let that go. Because I can't change it. I can change today. I can't change yesterday. Now, if I'm going to commit myself to something important, that's the only thing I have that I can give. That's my own, my time and my energy, my body, mind, and spirit to something. What's it going to be? Because that's my life. And there'll be short-term and long-term goals, but I've got to commit myself to some quality. What is it? If I'm going to have attention on something, what is it? Am I honoring my work? Am I honoring my life beyond my work? Am I honoring my family? If you got a family, you got to pay attention to the needs of the family. What are the real needs versus the superficial needs? How much attention are you giving to those real needs? Or are you giving any attention to it? Is it like most families, they just kind of do whatever they are going to do on their own just to create their own identity, and you just share a common space for a period of time, and with not a whole lot of real quality communication? Almost a fear at some point, you've postponed it so long that what are you going to talk about when you finally talk about something? How uncomfortable it feels. By the way, that's one of the reasons that grandparents in other cultures are so valuable to the family, because they act as the communicators for the unresolved conflicts, unresolved issues between children and their parents, because there's generally no threat from the grandparents. And there's a sense of trust and patience. They're willing to forgive. They're not willing to chastise or criticize. They're looking to bridge. So you've got a period of time each day. If you don't focus on attention to that time will be meaningless. At the end of a day, it's just another day out of your life. You cannot live that again. It's wasted time. And if you're trying to do something with that time that doesn't honor the real needs of the real self to create a real identity, then it's wasted time. So you have to put this in focus. This is in effect a workshop where your life is a workbook. And every page of the workbook, you're seeing a better way of handling the crisis in your life, the identity problems in your life. You say your life, your life's a mess because you're not making things happen for yourself. Well, you can't make something happen if you're uncertain who's going to happen to. And if you're allowing anything from the past to dictate that you're not good enough or not smart enough or not lovable enough or not complete enough, then you're honoring a voice from the past that's more powerful, more important than your current voice. Nothing's going to work for you if you do that. And this is why it's important that you start all over today. Just start the game over. And if that means, yes, leaving a job, leaving an area and saying, I'm going to put my time on this instead of this, then that's what you got to do. And the whole idea is to prepare to do that so that when you do make the change is not superficial and you have the strength to follow through on that change. Otherwise, if you just out of anxiety go out to change something, you're going to revert back. You're going to fall right back on the old self. And that's not healthy. So we want a good quality attention and time, focus. Now, in what are we completely natural and in what are we completely honest? Because what you do that is natural and what you do that is honest is what the real self is beckoning you to do. I know a man who 2 years ago was in crisis. This was a lawyer. He had a successful practice in corporate law, but he found that his clients were not ethical people. He felt he had made an enormous amount of compromises in order to protect their interests, irrespective of the rightness of the decision. He was paid, and he did what everyone else in his firm did. You care first about yourself and your income, not about the rightness of your decisions. And as a result, one day he just woke up and he said he couldn't live this lie anymore. He was not honest. He wasn't doing anything that was honest. No, now the only thing he does are things that are honest and natural. He's left law altogether. Instead, he is out in California, Northern California, and he's working in a spa. And he counsels people in how to take care of themselves. No one knows that he's a lawyer. No one knows his past. He doesn't get into that because that means interminable questions that no one would ever understand. You gave up $300,000 a year and a high-class style living, and you were living on, Central Park West, and you had all this stuff, and now you're living in this adobe over here. It doesn't make any sense. Well, to them it wouldn't, but to him, he's being honest and doing what's natural. He feels great working with people without having to compete against them, without having to be mercenary, without having to hurt people. And he's happy. Ironically, no one else in his family is happy with his happiness. And he said, boy, wasn't that unusual. Could you imagine your own family saying that you're wrong for being happy at something that doesn't make us happy? His father, who's also an attorney, has just been ballistic ever since then. He doesn't talk with his son. He yells at his son. But then again, what my buddy never realized, that his father never talked with him, but always yelled at him, as he did his other brothers. And they could do no wrong as long as they were doing what he, the father, dictated. And the mother never had a constructive input. She was there merely for emotional support, but would never interfere with what the father was saying, because the father's a very dominant man. I mean, he is very hard on his family. They must live up to his standards. Well, his are highly competitive. You win at all costs. You make the rules as you go. Very mercenary person, very Machiavellian personality. And it was very easy to see how my buddy got caught up in believing that he had to prove by being a tough lawyer and a corporate lawyer and making money and being successful and having clients that he was lovable. It was just another way of saying, hey, Dad, have I made enough now to get a hug? And there was never enough. Never enough. When you're insecure, it's never enough. So stop playing the game of when's enough enough. It's never enough. Now he's happy. Now, when I go up there, whenever I'm in San Francisco and I drive north up to the Napa Valley and see him, this guy is a different human being. First, he looks 10 years younger. His body is different. He used to run, but now he runs out of the joy of running. Before, he ran because he was competing and winning. And it was interesting. He ran with a whole group of lawyers, and there were about 10 of them running together. And, it was a phenomenon to watch him, because one of them who's a very famous lawyer in New York. In 20 years of seeing him on the track, he's never once said hello to anyone except the women that he picks up. Right? He's a real, skirt chaser. And he's got a contemptible personality, but he's very successful at what he does. And when they run together, all they talk about is how well they've done in their races. But what was interesting is when any of them get injured, they don't show up to run anymore. The idea is if they can't win, then they can't be a part of the pack. And in time, it's gone from about 10, 12 guys down to 2 guys, and then no guys, because over time they all burn out. And my buddy was one of them who ran for years and was a very good runner. But he hated the running. He hated the competing. It was unnatural to him because just like anything else, he had to run to win. And so there was nothing he ever did that was natural and felt good. Now he didn't have to win. People like him for being nice. And by the way, people are going to like you not because you win. People like you because you got a nice heart and because you care about them. And you always know you're in the presence of either an egotist or a very insecure person. They'll never ask you about you. And if they do, it's perfunctory and not an honest comment. The conversation's always about them or by them or comes back to them. It's no different than watch carefully in the conversations with your friends or colleagues and see how quickly it takes them to bring everything back to them. And you probably have played into that game a million times not even being aware of it. And before you know, you're just, yeah, oh yeah, really? And it's all about them. Well, that's a pattern. That's one of these patterns that in the choices you make, you got to break the patterns. If you don't break the patterns, all you're doing is honoring someone else's insecurities. You're not helping them, and they're not helping themselves. It's a waste of time. Once again, we go back to the quality of our attention and quality of our time. We're giving the quality of our time to someone who is abusing it. If all someone's doing is having you around so they can talk about themselves or ask you about their problems, what's the point of being around that person? They don't care about you. You could be anybody as long as you're looking at them, listening to them. And it could be in your family, a friend, at work. It's the same. So if you start taking away that time and place it on something that does count, that is more honest and natural, and let's face it, a person that does nothing but talk about their problems has no interest in changing their problems because they're not looking at change. They're looking at a form of redemption by examining all the bits and pieces. And they keep throwing those bones down 1,000 times, keeps reading the same. Their life doesn't work. Well, how many times do you want to hear that someone's life doesn't work? I mean, fine, it doesn't work. You told me once, you never have to tell me again. I trust you. I believe you. Once is enough. Now, what would you talk about if you told someone something once and they were paying attention to it and they say, all right, I understand. Then you could talk about other things. Yes?
What about being charitable? Listening to somebody's problems, trying to do a favor to them, be nice?
We should all be nice. Part of the whole idea of being a good human being is to offer compassion and time and sensitivity and direction to those who honestly seek it. The difference is the people who keep coming back with the same problems and the same needs but don't do anything with your advice and your charity. Then you have to recognize the pattern. As I said in the beginning, anyone can have any problem and it's completely natural. It's the patterns that you have to be aware of. The patterns of people who drain you or always take but don't do anything. There comes a day when you simply have to say, look, I've listened, I've been understanding, I've given you my suggestions. Now either please take my suggestions, show me where my suggestions aren't usable, or don't complain anymore. We've done this number, all right? We've done this, let's go on to something else. Now when you do that, you're going to see the reaction. Oh, you're insensitive. Oh, you're cold. Oh, and suddenly it's blame. You become the person that they're going to throw all their anger out to because you've caught their act. You know, it's like catch a liar in a lie and watch how quickly they scream. You know, watch how quickly they blow their cool. When people generally are caught doing something they know is dishonest, they overreact. The whole idea of overreacting is now to make you feel guilty for having caught them. No, but you don't have to feel guilty. You just say, yeah, yell at the wind, I'm out of here. You're going to save yourself a lot of time. Also, you got to ask yourself this. There's a very big difference between wanting to help people, caring about people, being charitable people, and using it as an excuse to hide your own inefficiency at living by acting as if you're a Mother Teresa to the world. And a lot of people are caught up in what I call the wounded ego syndrome. At some point in their life, they've been hurt, they've been made to feel that they were worth nothing, they've taken it seriously, and now all they do is to go out and they will immerse themselves in other people's problems, so everyone thinks, oh, Gladys is such a nice person, look at her, she's always there, she's always helping, she helps everybody, all that she never has a moment for herself. The moment you hear a person doesn't have a moment for themselves, they're not working on their own life, that's a person who is using that energy to disguise and hide their own inefficient life. Because to have a healthy life, you have to have a life. And you have to have a life and a relationship to your life that is separate and apart from anything you do for anyone else. The person who doesn't have a life for themselves is not being charitable to other people. They're using that as a hidden agenda to gain a need. Oh, and suddenly it comes back. Oh, you're so wonderful. I need more. Oh, you're so giving. I need more. Oh, you care about, I need more. And it becomes a compulsive and addictive need where you're getting reinforcement, you're okay because you truly don't believe it. If you believed it, you'd have a life. And having a life is not living in the need constantly to serve other people. There is a difference between honoring your spiritual nature by giving service and sacrifice to society and other people, but it starts with yourself. You must have a life. Otherwise, you're going to burn out in the process. And generally, by the way, those people become as bad as their own, the other victims they feel that they're trying to make a difference with. So there's a balance. And again, it is in the balance. So it's not one extreme or the other. It's not the whiner and complainer you pay no attention to, nor the person that seems to live only for helping these people. Rather, it is to pay attention to your real needs, your real time, and save some time in every day, and I believe you can do this in every day, to show compassion, sensitivity, and caring, and actually do something on an emotional, spiritual, intellectual level for others in the world around you. It's not difficult. I mean, it's just like recently I was counseling a married couple. And they said that they're both professionals. He's a lawyer, she is an architect. And they have no time. Their careers are very busy. So after all was said and done, I suggested a few things they could do together. And one of the things they could do together, I selected 5 areas they could do stuff together each day. And one of them, on the spiritual level, was to go out each day and to befriend a homeless person and to talk with them and to take some sandwiches and stuff and feed them. And they hadn't thought about that. So they started going out together. And they found that that's one of the most rewarding parts of their day. Because every person they meet on the street who's a homeless person, they recognize as being a human being. Before, they never recognized these people as human beings. They're kind of the, my God, I wish they were in someone else's neighborhood, not mine. I wish they hung out in front of someone else's building, not my building. Now it's too bad that society doesn't care enough about these human beings that we just walk by them and forget that they're real. And now they're addressing it. In fact, the woman called me, the architect, and she said they're the head of a local planning group now, and she got a city appointment, and something I had told her a year ago about creating taking abandoned buildings in the city and getting corporations who could do it as a tax write-off and good PR for them to offer money that would rehabilitate the buildings, and getting the local people in the neighborhood to actively work on the buildings so it becomes a local homeowners project where for $1 a person then owns their own apartment and then pays a maintenance to maintain the utilities, but it has to have a daycare center in it, has to have a community program in it, in the bottom floor, and then people can live above, but only do they live there if first they cooperated and worked for the entire time, which is generally 6 months to a year, in the rehabilitation of the building and its maintenance. And so it gives back to those who are least able to afford a chance to actually have something as their own and live in a lifestyle that at least is above, poverty level. And I created a whole model, including an organic garden on the roof and a greenhouse and things that are all sustainable agriculture, and night classes, adult education classes, and getting senior citizens group of retired teachers to come in and teach, and bilingual teaching, and getting people who are craftspersons and different skills to come and teach crafts for people who are out of work but need to learn other crafts and skills. And they thought it was all kind of crazy. Well, now they're doing it. And it all started from a couple trying to find quality time to do something that was honest in the service of society for an hour a day. Now think of how many hours in a day you waste by giving it to people who don't appreciate what you give it. And you have to make those calls on your own. Who appreciates the time you're giving? I wrote a letter today to a person and said that, think well, you'll not be receiving any more of my support in the future because you have not appreciated it. And this person will probably be first angry and then have a moment to pause, because the time will come when this organization and this person are going to need my help again. It won't be there, because I'll put it in better causes, or causes that deserve it. You got to ask yourself, how much of your time and energy are you spending with anything where it's not honored? And if you continue to spend 1 second where you're not being honored, then you are a fool. Trust me on this. No human being on earth should have 1 second of your time if they don't honor it. I don't care if it's your kids or anybody else. If you got someone in your life that doesn't respect your time, you sit them down and say, you got a choice. You respect my time, or there is no time. All right? You want someone else in your life? We'll go get you someone else. But you're not going to have me anymore. You have to make that call, because every second you don't make that call, you're angry at yourself. And you all know that, because I'm sure everyone in this room has given a lot of time to people who didn't appreciate any of the stuff you were giving them. And so what was the purpose of it? What did you prove? No, you proved nothing. But you proved you can't relive that time. Now think if you'd have given that time to people who honor it and respect it, say, hey, something good's coming from this. And that's the choice. And by the way, it's all on an intuitive level. You'll know when you're giving it to the right person or organization or anything else. It'll come back. The feelings will come back. There's a connection that occurs when there is a bond between people. You feel it. And you know what I'm talking about. In what ways do we disguise our real self? Why would we want to disguise the real self? What's the investment we have in disguising the real self? What's the answer? Why would you want to hide something that's real, that's you, that's natural, that's honest? What would be the fear? Why would you fear someone knowing you? All the time people hide and disguise their real self. Why? Insecurity. All right, good. What else? You'd be afraid of being rejected if people knew the real you. Okay, what else? Shame. You might think that the real self is inadequate. It's inadequate. Now, why would the real self be inadequate? Because frequently the standards that are maintained in our society to be acceptable are very difficult to achieve. We make it almost impossible to have someone be acceptable as they are. And so people fake who they are. They fake the real, so we think what we're getting is the real, and it isn't. What else? Why else would someone be afraid to disguise the real self? Yes?
Because you're trying to act in the way that other people want you
Yes, you're mimicking other people's response. You're trying to read in everything that they say and do what they really expect from you. And so you think, if I say this, if I show this part, they're not going to like it, so I better give them this. I'm going to give them what they want. There's less hassle. You also get reward if you give them what they want. You get punishment if you don't. And if the real self means punishment, then you're being dishonest with the real self. Without honesty, there is nothing natural in what you're doing or how you're feeling. Your life then is based upon an artificial presence. And the artificial presence has no bottom. So no matter what you put into it in the way of emotions from other people to make you feel better about some other parts, you compensate. Where you're dishonest here in your work, you overcompensate and try to get the emotional input back in your friends and family. But it doesn't work. It's still the bottomless pit. So you can't be one thing to one person and something else to someone else and someone else to someone else. And yet we have all these different images we project towards other people. And it creates enormous confusion. Yes?
Could be trauma or pain that you have stored from the past.
Could be pain from the past, yes. Yes?
It makes you vulnerable because they know what it is that you're about, then they can take it away from you and hurt you.
She says that it makes you vulnerable because if you're honest, you're vulnerable. And then they could take that, take the real self and distort it. Well, the whole idea is that only if we are vulnerable are we honest. You cannot be hurt if you're vulnerable. Now, think of this. Every song you've ever heard has told you, and forget country western, those are manically depressing songs. I lost my car, I lost my horse, I lost my house, I lost my wife, lost my heart, lost my heart, lost my heart, lost my heart. I lost my money. They lose everything. Did you ever notice that? That's how they get a bestseller. Just put a lot of loss in the lyrics and it wins. And sing it like you're crying. I grew up in hillbilly country. I can't stand it. But anyhow, the idea is that when you are vulnerable, you're open. When you're open, you're expressing what is natural and a sense of balance within yourself. In other words, you're acknowledging, this is who I am. You're sharing true intimacy. Now, intimacy is not sexuality. Unfortunately, we've tried to make sexuality and intimacy the same. They are not. They are radically opposite. Intimacy means you're expressing what you really feel, what you really are at your essence. You're laying it out. A person can accept or reject it, but you must respect also that you have a sanctity, and within the sanctity, you alone make the decisions, no one else. You alone decides who comes into that sanctuary and shares thatness, shares the self. But if they're going to share the self, they must share the self as you have expressed it, not as they would manipulate it. Then the idea is, have you allowed yourself to be vulnerable without changing what you're being vulnerable about to meet the needs of other people? And generally what happens when someone knows that you're being vulnerable and open and honest, what's the first thing they do? They take advantage. What else? They try changing it. Right? You've given them access. You've said, here's what I am. Here's what I feel. They say, oh, good. Now, you know you're kind of stupid about this. I mean, let me set you straight on this. And suddenly we say, hold on, that's offensive. That's offensive. You don't offend someone on a level who's opened themselves up. You have no right to. Instead, you have a right to say, I shared what I am. If it's not good enough as it is, then goodbye. And if you don't say that, I promise you, you're going to be hurt. With openness and vulnerability, you are allowing yourself to be as free and flexible as you can. You have movement. You have fluidity. You have range of intellectual and creative expression. But with invulnerability, you are closed. You are rigid. You have completely rigidified your entire nature. You're fearful of being discovered. your inner secret, your inner passion, your inner bliss, your inner desire, your inner being, because you haven't got to the point where you've accepted that the inner is good. And so you're trying to hold on to any deficiency by keeping it limited and keeping the access limited. So people only take a little peeky-boo, that's it, little tiny peek in. Once in a while they'll get a peek in. You can't move. When you're not vulnerable, you're stuck. Then you get stuck in a job, stuck in a relationship, stuck in a career, stuck in a position in life, stuck in a place. And you try to defend the merits of being stuck rather than opening yourself up to move on from there. You spend more time defending the ego and its wrong-headedness than you do in realizing there is nothing to defend in being open. You never have to defend vulnerability. You never have to defend the true and honest self. It is self-expressive. Here's what I am. You like it or you don't like it. I said the other day on the radio, I think it was on Friday, when the person I was raising funds was trying to explain, you know, oh, this tape is for everyone. I said, hold on a second. It is not. And I was emphatic. And I said, let me explain something. 90% of the American population, I don't give a fiddler's anything for. All right? They're not nice people. I want nothing to do with them. They've got everyone else having something to do with them, right? They don't need me. I only pay attention to the people who are paying attention to life. That's my choice. It's my call. It's my right. I'm not going to pretend that I can make a difference. I can't open a racist mind, a sexist mind. I can't turn a person whose whole life is so convoluted and warped, so selfish and distastefully vulgar about everything that's decent. I can't turn them around. Billy, it's a game to think we can. It's the extension of the most pathological ego who says, yeah, I'll go in there and turn all these people around. Yeah, follow me. I've got the answers. Right, You think you're going to turn people around? No. The only person who turns a person around is the person, no one else. And they'll do it when and if they decide. Now, they may let you think that you're making a difference, but let's face it, how many times in your life have people let you think you were making a difference and you never made a difference? Right? Because the day came when it was show time and there was nothing to show. Go ahead, I spent all this time and energy on you. I gave you so much. Go ahead, you can do. No, I can't, it was a game. You were an idiot. You dumb sucker. Man, I played your ego so easily. You are such a fool. What do you mean a fool? I gave you so much. You said, give me your knowledge. I give you not. Give me your compassion. Give me your heart. I gave it to you. Well, aren't you an idiot then? Because all the while you weren't seeing that I wasn't changing. The only thing you were feeling was your own energy that you were projecting. Had you gotten out of your own ego, you would have seen that you hadn't changed anything. The world was still here when you got back. All you were doing is walking around looking in the mirror saying, aren't I beautiful? Aren't I beautiful? I must be doing something. And it's every politician, it's every religious leader, it's all these people. It's all a game of megalomania. If we're honest, that's what it is. Of course, we can't be honest. Huh? Yes, I guess everybody makes a big difference. That's good. That's politically right statement. We all make a difference. Yeah, bullshit. Nobody makes a difference about anything, ever. It's the person who makes a difference. But we all line up right behind someone because we like to benefit from the illusion, when in reality, when it comes to doing something, we don't do it. And the fact is, the world is the way it is today because we don't do it. We don't need any more messages on love and peace and coexistence and decency, do we? I mean, I think we've had enough words written. Is there someone in the world who's still ignorant on this subject? I don't know anyone who doesn't know about it. Well, then why do we have the conflict? I don't know of a corporation or corporate head in the world that doesn't know about the effects of pollution and acid rain and ozone and depletion. I don't know of any. Do you? Is there a CEO? Is there a corporate person? Is there a stockholder, a shareholder? Is there an investment broker? Is there anyone alive who doesn't know anything about anything? We know everything about how to survive and thrive and grow. Then why is it that only about 1% of the population are engaged in it? But boy, there's a lot of money made by pretending. right? It's like the Environmental Protection Agency. Protecting us from what? We need to be protected from the Environmental Protection Agency. The Food and Drug Administration, a propaganda arm of the drug industry. The AMA, a monopoly union for medical doctors. No, I mean, that's the reality. Like it or not, that's reality. But that's being honest. But again, we have to lie. Oh, yes, well, we need these organizations. Yes, we need $1 trillion in medical bills each year for the lawyers and doctors. And no, we don't. So what I'm suggesting is, and exactly what I said, I don't have to prove to anybody anything, nor do you. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. And if someone wants your help, let them ask for it. More than that, then, let them show that they deserve it. When someone shows they deserve your time and deserve your attention, then it's a lesson that they're going to pay attention to because they're paying for it. You don't pay for the lesson, you don't learn the lesson. And isn't it interesting that the people in our society who seem, from my experience, to be learning the lessons are people who have paid the lesson for themselves. The people who don't want to pay any lessons want to hook onto someone else. Bubba Rubba or some other, and then off they go on Wonder Wonderland, right? Nobody learns from that, right? Yes.